Joining us now with stories trending around the world is Visit+Akpabio. Good morning, Vimbai.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning,
Ayo.
Good morning, Rufai. How are you all doing today?
Doing well.
Yes, so many stories today and so much going on all around the world. So let's get straight into it as our time is limited. We kick off with President Bola Tinubu, who has played host to a high-level delegation from the United States Africa Command, AFRICOM, led by its Commander General Dagvin Anderson at the State House, Abuja, on Sunday in a meeting attended by the top brass of Nigeria's military and security organizations, including the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, the Minister of Defense, General Christopher Musa, retired, Chief of Defense Staff, General Olufemi Oluyede, Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Waidi Shaibu, Chief of Defense Intelligence, Lieutenant General Emmanuel Wandiande, and the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, Mohammed, the Director General of the Department of State Services, Tosin Ajayi. This meeting, which took place on Sunday, comes amid intensified security cooperation between Nigeria and the United States following the Christmas Day airstrikes on terrorist camps in Sokoto State. Last week, both AFRICOM and the Nigerian Defense Headquarters confirmed the presence of a small team for capacity building, professional military education, intelligence sharing, logistics support, and strategic dialogue. Well, in an exclusive report related to this matter, the cable has spoken to sources who have confirmed that the two nations have agreed to the establishment of a station for the refueling of US drones, reporting that a Northeastern state has been designated the host for the station. According to the cable, the station would allow US officials to fly in from Ghana, which is a hub for America's military logistics network in Africa, to strategize on supporting Nigerian troops. The publication also spoke to a former U.S. official who is said to have given further details about the small military team, a scope which the report says has been assigned to the 3rd Special Forces Group. That's a group that has engaged in Afghanistan, Iraq, Mali, and Ethiopia in the past. A Minister of Defense, retired General Christopher Musa, has maintained that these U.S. troops are not combat troops. But there's been so much conversation on social media, as you can imagine, based on this development. Let's quickly take some reactions from X. Kingsley posted and said, "The safety of our families is at risk due to terrorism, and the Nigerian military partnership with the U.S. could be a game changer. With U.S. support, Nigeria can strengthen its defenses, gain valuable training, and bring lasting stability to our country." However, Olu Kayode also posted and said, "This is not a viable project. Let it be clear that we are inviting unforeseen future problems. I bet Nigeria and those clamoring for U.S. intervention will surely come back crying of manipulation. It is advised not to allow any U.S. military establishment on our soil. It will backfire." Well, of course, you can imagine that this is one of those issues that from the onset we saw that it was extremely divisive, extremely polarizing, as people had very different views. Ayo, I'll start with you today. These developments, especially with regards to the fact that there was a confirmation that there was a small team. Now it's looking like it's a little bit more than a small team, possibly the establishment of a station. And people are saying, well, this is just political talk for a base is going to be set up. Are we getting ahead of ourselves?
So this is the concern of a number of people, and I think I remember when this news first broke, one of the things I had mentioned was that the first news we heard about this came from the AFRICOM Commander himself. He held a briefing with some pressmen, some journalists, a virtual briefing, and from that then we knew that, okay, they said they had a few boots on ground, and there was that debate around what was their mission, what was the timeline. Not specific details were not given, and I'd said that it would be great for the Nigerian side to take a lead on this conversation. Let us hear from the Nigerian government first before we hear about what's happening on our own soil from the U.S. command. Now, the day afterwards, I believe the Minister of Defense had come out to clarify, saying, "No, it was just a small team. They were coming here for intelligence gathering, just a small team coming in, and there was no base, to debunk that rumor." Now that we're now hearing whispers of the fact that, okay, no, it's not base, it's just small team, they're just here, it then further deepens, unfortunately, this trust deficit, particularly when the government says something with regards to the state of security, and this this collaboration between the United States and Nigeria. From the very beginning, when we had asked them, we had said we were going to go into a collaboration, there were dissenting voices who had expressed doubts around the extent to which, this collaboration would go and what would Nigeria's role be. And then how the US comes into a country and essentially, as a superpower, takes over. Usually, it's not on equal footing. They come as a senior partner. And this is what was consistently pushed, that Nigeria must protect Nigeria's interest in this matter. Now it's coming up that there's likely going to be, a setup, a station here. When we did then, what's the difference between a station and a base? I believe that at this point, just to wrap up on this point, that the Nigerian government ought to be transparent and honest with its people. Nigeria first is what we've consistently said on this table. Yes, a number of people have expressed the welcome of US support to help us finally tackle and fight against and decimate terrorists and defeat insecurity in Nigeria to a very large extent. But what is the price for that? And that's a big question for a number of people. To what extent are we willing to sell? To what extent are we willing to bargain? I hope that the government will put Nigeria's interests first, even though it's important and critical for us to fight against terrorism.
And Dr. Abati, if you can build up on that as we take this next story and bring everything together. Because in a separate development, United States lawmakers have strongly criticized the Nigerian government for spending millions of dollars on lobbying efforts in Washington instead of addressing worsening insecurity and religious persecution at home. The condemnation came during a congressional hearing on religious freedom, where members of the US House of Representatives expressed deep concern that Nigeria was paying as much as $4.5 million renewable to total to $9 million to lobbyists to downplay the scale of violence and persecution in the country. In his submission, US Reps member Chris Smith also made reference to an unnamed Nigerian billionaire who is said to have gone into a similar contract worth $120,000 per month. Here's a snippet of the proceedings.
In Nigeria. We can't take our eyes off of that. I just want to say to my colleagues, to all of us, I'm deeply concerned that Nigeria has hired the K Street lobbying firm, DCI, to the tune of $9 million. $750,000 a month. And a Nigerian billionaire has entered into a $120,000 a month contract with Valcor to influence Congress and the executive branch. And Ambassador, you know as well as I over these many years, because you have fought this fight. They hire these firms, they come up with their very well-written talking points to say, nothing to see here. Whether it be Haiti, China does it better than anyone else, or worse really is what it is. We saw it with Romania. I remember during the years of Nicholas Ceausescu, and I led the effort on that along with Frank and you, Sam, Mr. Ambassador. And they always had these lobbying firms that said, Ceausescu's a good guy. He has all these churches that he has opened. He was torturing Christians. And the book that got me into religious freedom myself was Torture to Christ.
Right, well, how do we balance this conversation, Dr. Abati? Because we also know that the US government spends billions of dollars on perception management. It may not be lobbying contracts, but they also spend money on perception of the United States to the rest of the world. So them calling out an African government for doing the same, I know other people are saying, well, the priorities are that money will be better used to reinforce our security infrastructure. How do we balance all these conversations?
Okay, first, let me start with the president meeting with the general in charge of the AFRICOM. Now, General Anderson had said that he had previously met with President Tinubu in Rome. It was after that meeting in Rome that we had that report that the United States was going to provide some materials for Nigeria, and we saw the picture of that. And then subsequently, some troops, a small troop, they call it, were sent to be on the ground, not to engage in combat, direct combat, but to assist the Nigerian military with intelligence and also with training and with, logistics. Okay, all of this is is part of the fallout of the December 25 guns are blazing declaration. Well, the declaration was October 31, 2025. December 25, President Trump sent Tomahawk missiles to attack some locations in the northwest part of Nigeria. Since then, Nigeria has been engaging with the U.S. The National Security Advisor leading a delegation, Riley Moore coming to Nigeria, another delegation visiting parts of Nigeria. Even the governor of Plateau State, Governor Mutfwang, also recently went on a diplomatic shuttle. The whole idea is to deepen cooperation between both countries. So that meeting is not surprising. Two governments talking to each other, trying to address what is not just a Nigerian problem, but a global problem. Terrorism, extremism in the world, propelled by the Islamic State, the Al-Qaeda, and locally by Boko Haram. So I think from that perspective, the meeting was to be expected, and it is in order. The part of it that Nigerians can complain about is that, we will now have a refueling base for drones for the American troops in Nigeria. Where it will be located is not stated, but some people have speculated that it will be in the Northeast. Now, that will further expand the location of U.S. forces in Nigeria, and that gives our people some kind of anxiety. And it is in that regard that the Nigerian government, must monitor the process, very closely, so that, America doesn't dump a base, right inside Nigeria. That may be the source of the concern, but the cooperation can only be further strengthened, and Nigerian interests should always be closely monitored, not just by government, but also by civil society. Now, on the other issue about lobbying, yes, there's been another round of congressional hearing by the Foreign Affairs Committee, and it was during that session that members of the House, of the various committees, expressed concern that Nigeria is spending about $9 million. 4.5 has already been paid for 6 months. Another 4.5 will be paid. And then, of course, you have private persons, entrepreneurs, saying they are supporting the Nigerian government, who have also publicly said that the A2 have spent $120,000 to support the Nigerian government. I hope that as we move towards 2027, we'll be contractors trying to protect their turf. We will not have more of them coming. This one $120,000, this one will be $50,000, and it will become some kind of a racket. Some tax rebate, negotiation, tax avoidance gambit by Nigerian businessmen. However, the point made on the floor of the Congress is that, look, Nigeria should pay more attention to fighting terrorism back home, putting structures in place, rather than coming to the US do PR. Yes. However, as you pointed out, it's not a wrong thing to do. And the fellow who spoke said Haiti did it, China did it, Romania did it. Also, other countries have been doing it, including the US that you mentioned. But the whole issue here is that at the end of the day, no matter the amount of lobbying you do overseas, no matter the level of public relations or perception management, you just have to focus on your home and get it right here.
And get it right. And Rufai, you've spoken very passionately, especially around this lobbying issue. I'd love for you to tie it into our next story, which also touches on the international scene. With countless reactions trailing the announcement from the British royal family on Sunday that King Charles III and Queen Camilla are set to host President Bola Tinubu and First Lady Oluremi Tinubu at Windsor Castle for a state visit next month. The agenda for the meeting has not yet been publicly disclosed, but it is set to take place from the 18th to the 19th of March at Windsor Castle. And the event will mark President Tinubu's first formal visit to the UK, with many remembering Nigeria's last state visit there taking place in 1989, when the military ruler General Ibrahim Babangida met with the late Queen Elizabeth on a 4-day trip. Let's take a look. right, so, looking at that 1989, and you put it aside with what's happening at the moment, a lot of people are saying, driven by lobbying, and this was relatively organic, and, your take on these two moments in history.
As first, let me start on the lobbying issue. Dr. Abati, if you heard the congressman, what he was saying is that Romania did it. But while Romania was doing it, Ceausescu was lying about the killings of people in Romania. The other countries that did it, they were trying to skew facts about the killings and the hurt on their people. So he was not making an equivalence to be able to assert what they did. He was saying, giving those examples of Romania, Ceausescu, for the fact that the dastardly effect of lobbying, when you're trying to change a narrative, at the same time people are being killed, and you're not solving the problem. And we all know how Ceausescu Romania happened. We all know what happened historically. The fact that even Israel does it with IPAC to their own favor, we know the dastardly effects that has got, even in America. And that's why you see the likes of the right-wingers are now saying America first, not Israel before America. So the question is, we can say, lobby is being done everywhere. Some can say, America sells their culture one way or the other. But it does not erase the fact that people are being killed on their home turf. And that's what you ought to solve. Not expending time on trying to change the narrative and getting the good books. Please. Secondly, you see what is happening to Nigeria. It's a nation. It's what happens to a nation that its leaders have failed over the years and doesn't look out for itself. Dr. Bati, there's one Yoruba adage that it just means that if you've lost your respect and recognition, you will be constantly be decimated. There's that Yoruba quote. And that's what's happening to Nigeria. Don't be deceived. You know what America has just done? Because Nigeria has not been able to solve its insecurity problem, the drone base that they chased America out from in Niger, they have just steadily brought it back here for their Reaper drones. You know, that was why the first option they gave us was they propped President Tinubu to go and fight out the military junta in Niger because they wanted to keep their base there. They had two bases, base 101 and 102. And when that didn't work, they left that matter. So because our own insecurity came to a head, and they saw that we had no options, we needed their help, they say, okay, let's come and cozy up to Nigeria. Nigeria will give us the base. So we're giving them the base one way or the other. You see, any country that has a base in your country has you. Because apart from giving intelligence for you alone, they also give intelligence for himself. If you think America cares so much about ending the insecurity in your country, that's why it has a base. No. It thinks of its own interests first. America first. The only difference is that it's just Trump that shouts it. Every American president thinks of America first.
Yes.
So what it shows is that to a large extent, a country that's supposed to be the giant of Africa, that's supposed to have the wherewithal to tackle its internal problem, because it can't tackle its internal problem, it has now ceded a base, if it's confirmed, to America. So America will not need to look at Niger again, since it has a base here. And as you do that, the Russians are in Niger, pockets. So what's just happening is that another proxy warfare is going on in the West African coast. That's the extrapolation. America is here, Niger, Russia is there, France too is also losing interest. I'm sure France will be biting themselves that why did we end Operation Barkhane on time? Because they have an Operation Barkhane when they were in and around here. What saddens me the most in all of this, I don't think our leaders have an import of what is going on. It's just about winning elections for them. And that's why, yes, we are celebrating a state visit. It's good, the first one in 37 years. The question is, what does our leader bring for our own interest in that state visit?
I think that's what we'll be waiting to see. What is Nigeria's interest, and how do we resolve these complex issues? Rufai, as you've put it succinctly, they're regional issues that are now getting more international involvement, making them more complex. Well, let's focus on situations happening here at home. As of course, we already hear that that the protest at the National Assembly is heating up. I understand Peter Obi is also there. However, in the lead up to this protest, Senate President Godswill Akpabio over the weekend fired back at critics of the ongoing Electoral Act amendment, accusing some civil society organizations and commentators of abusing the National Assembly without understanding the lawmaking process. He spoke on Saturday at the launch of The Burdens of Legislators in Nigeria, a book by former Senator Effiong Bob, and Akpabio warned that premature judgments by outsiders were undermining democracy. He described some critics as mouth legislators, urging them to contest elections if they wish to engage in lawmaking rather than merely criticize from television studios. Our television studios have suffered. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
Electoral Act amendment that is incompleted. We have not completed it, but they are already on television. You see all sort of panels. Because they don't understand lawmaking. They don't even know that even the one in the Senate is not completed until we look at the votes and proceedings. So when we bring out the votes and proceedings, any senator has a right to rise up and say on clause 3, this was what we agreed upon. And if those who are recording through the verbatim recorder disagree or agree, we amend it before we approve the votes and proceedings. That is the only time you can now talk about what the Senate has done or what the Senate has not done. But already people are on television abusing the Senate, talking about the Senate, even when what we did has not yet been approved by the same Senate.
Our television studios are the problem, apparently. And I wonder what you would have to say about the gathering that's growing right now outside the National Assembly. Ayo, I'll come straight to you on this. Do we need to be lawmakers to comment on the lawmaking process?
And I do say that I applaud the efforts of those who have come out to speak up very boldly against the Senate's decision not to include the mandatory e-transmission of results, real-time transmission of results to the portal, to the IRF portal of INEC, because that has now triggered an emergency plenary called by the Senate President himself. That's what you call active citizenship. And he should not and cannot shame Nigerians for getting involved in the process, in the democratic process, including criticizing or speaking up when it doesn't favor the general, consensus. And I think it's very important to establish that. Now, most importantly is what Nigerians are expecting from the senators tomorrow. Let's leave all this talk, you said this, I didn't say this, you are talking, I didn't talk. Let us face the Nigerian people once and for all. We had a guest earlier today, and I thought what he said was very important. Some of the things that we expect is that we don't want voice votes anymore. It's high time Nigerians began to see how their representatives vote on the floor. Let us see which senator is for, which senator is against. Don't forget that the minority caucus of the Senate came out themselves on these platforms to also speak against the proceedings in the Senate. How do we have robust democracy if we don't have an active citizenry who are involved in the process, whether or not they have the information that is regarded? Yes, I believe that everyone should get educated, but it's also important to ensure that voices are not silenced, and where there's displeasure, people feel free enough to express themselves, and that actually triggers action from representatives, as we've now seen. But the most important thing is what happens post tomorrow. Will they reverse themselves? Yes. What's going to happen with regards to the Electoral Amendment Act of 2026? What are they going to put the people first, not their personal interest or party politics? That's the most important thing for Nigerians at this point.
Yeah, that's it. Everybody's voice matters. We have so much to get through today. I'm going to quickly fly through to our next story, which takes us to Rivers State. As a minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike had a busy weekend in his home state of Rivers State, where he commissioned the Renewed Hope headquarters as well as a radio station, Majority FM, by the Rivers State Renewed Hope ambassadors in Port Harcourt. He used this opportunity to pass a spiritual message to his detractors about the fate of those who indulge in the act of betrayal.
And I say today, being 7th of February, whoever is watching this program, whether you're a senator, whether you're a House of Rep member, whether you're a minister, or whether you're a governor, and you support betrayers, people continue to betray you in life. Let me say it again. you're a senator, whether you're a member of House of Representatives, whether you're a minister, and whether you're a governor, you sit down and support those who betray. Betrayal is your portion. Betrayal is your portion.
All right, well, the commission projects and spiritual ministrations were not the only talk of the town in Port Harcourt this weekend. Citizens were left in awe as videos of a motorcade allegedly belonging to the minister went viral over the weekend. All right, well, Dr. Abati, several developments, commissioning of Renewed Hope headquarters, office spaces, Majority FM, the radio station, as well as a message to those who want to imbibe the spirit of betrayal. They shouldn't try it.
Okay, let me start with the radio. Now, the governing, law is the one setting up the Nigerian the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC. If you look at the national, who is trying to shut me up? If you look at the National Broadcasting Code, now the National Broadcasting Code of Nigeria does not make room for you to register a radio station that is partisan or that is owned by a political party. So to say that Majority FM will be stationed at the campaign unit of the Renewed Hope agenda and will be taking messages from 666 units in Rivers State, that in itself is a problem, because you cannot have a radio station that is so openly partisan. Now, as reference, I would like people to read Mr. Dare Babarisa's book, House of War, 2003, I think that was when it was published, when Mr. Babarisa was a reporter in Ondo State, in Akure, and he was reporting the crisis in Ondo State in, I think, the 1983 election. The federal government had its own radio. The state government had its own radio. This was during the Omobori Owo part. And they were using radio to inflame passions, to cross crisis. Now, people should also read the media and the Rwandan genocide, I think by Alan Thompson, edited by Alan Thompson. Radio to how radio was used, the media was used to cause problems in Rwanda at that time. That is why it is dangerous to have any radio station owned by whoever in this country that is political. Now, the second issue is Minister Wike is now talking about a radio station. I mean, he has a job in Abuja as Minister of the Federal Republic. You may also say that it's a conflict of interest. If he wants to be actively involved in the running of a radio station, how does that affect his work in Abuja? However, the main summary, the one I'm concerned about, is about giving licenses to media houses that will be used strictly for political purposes. And I've given academic references in that regard to show that there is a danger there. So NBC has an option to withdraw the license of that openly partisan Majority FM. Which is
real quickly on betrayal. It takes a betrayal to know a betrayal.
On that poetic note, and also on a much more somber note, under milestones today, we bring you a sad update on a painful loss. Today, we at Arise News are mourning the deeply tragic passing of Chief Matthew Eguenu, the father of our beloved colleague and friend Ojiokwe. Chief Eguenu passed away on Friday, February 6th at 80 years old. As we condole and commiserate with our colleague and her family, Ojiokwe. In a Sunday statement, the family described the former police commissioner from Ukwani local government area of Delta State as a man with a character marked by honor, selflessness, and unshakable integrity. The statement added that Chief Eguenu lived his life dedicated to his duty, a boundless love for his family and a commitment to leadership and discipline. He is survived by one son, 5 daughters, including Oji, his grandchildren, and a wide network of extended family and friends who will remember his impact on their lives while carrying his legacy forward.
My daddy doesn't smile, guys. Daddy, smile. This is a video. You have to smile. Smile.
You have to apologize. You want to take it again?
No, I'm filming you. You have to smile.
Ready?
I told you guys.
It's been a long day without you, my friend. And I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
May his soul rest in perfect peace, and with Oji and her entire family in our thoughts and prayers as they navigate this incredibly difficult chapter. And I know everybody would have a word or two, a word of comfort to share. I saw Rufai and Ayo yesterday at the prayer service that was held. We thank Pastor Itwai Godalo and the Trinity House for leading us in that prayer service yesterday.
Oji and our siblings, they tried their best. They did well. One of the blessings of old age is to have children who treat you well and who stand by you in your old age. He lived long, at 80, and he lived a fulfilled life. He distinguished himself both in his chosen profession and also in the community. And we condole the entire family, and particularly our colleague, Oji Okwe.
Absolutely.
In this moment of grief.
For Oji's dad, that also happens to be a very good friend of mine, and remember the wonderful conversations we had, I'd just say he lived, he came, and he conquered. Death, where is thy sting?
Yeah. At 80 years old, he had a rich life with his children, his family who loved him very deeply and gave him the very best they could while he was here. So I hope they are comforted by that fact that their dad knew that he was very loved and they honored him while he was here. We pray that he rests in peace and that they are comforted.
Absolutely. Our prayers remain with Oji and her family during this time as we continue to condole with them. Take comfort, Oji. We love you here and we're here to support you. That's all we have on What's Trending today.
We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you